Sean, good to see you.
What's up, Todd? Thanks for having me.
No, my pleasure. Kind of want to know what's your perspective on what's going on the first, second week of February in the real estate market right now?
We're in early February right now, and it's funny. It's become a very emotional market. I think mostly tied to your world of interest rates. We've seen increases week over week over week of homes going into escrow. Obviously, we have homes coming to the market, but homes going into the escrow, we've actually seen the highest week over week homes go pending since probably sometime in maybe September.
Really?
So if you look at follow the week over week trends, this will probably beat most of what we saw in the fourth quarter. So it's really good stuff. We've heard of homes across the county, specifically detached homes. We're also starting to hear condos, multiple offers. We made 3 or 4 different offers this weekend on prices that were even more than relative homes that we were making in the month of December, and they were overbid. Give you an example, there was a home in Carmel Valley that we tried to buy in December for $2,150,000. The seller pulled it off the market, put it back on the market last week, and they received offers over $2.4 million. So the market has shifted a little bit.
You think that's due to interest rates dropping?
We had a nice little drop in interest rates. We also saw the national news where we had mortgage applications go up 28% overnight. So that was really cool to see. I think, and you also have seen this normalization and comfortability with where we are now prices. It's less of shock and it's more, we've absorbed that initial blow of interest rates going up.
Right.
And now the people that have to buy, the people that have to sell, people that have to do something are all just going back out in the market, and they're marching forward and going to do it because lives have to go on. They've just found different ways to either finance it. They've, scrounged together more cash, or they figure out another solution to help reach their goal. I think people are back out in the market. There was a lot of fear, obviously, in the fourth quarter of 2022.
Well, the media's been putting a lot of fear out there too, right?
And they're still doing it. I think we're going to probably see more media kind of depressing the market a little bit, especially if you look at kind of rolling 90-day prices, which the media is really looking at data that's 30, 60, 90, 120 days old.
Right.
If you're talking to people that are working in the trenches right now who are actually selling homes, who are listing property, what you'll find is a much different tune. But the media probably won't get around to this till probably mid to late March or even April.
What do you think they'll even get around to it? Because they love to sell negativity, right? I mean,
it's funny. It probably just depends if this quickly takes a turn and starts going in the direction that I think people want. I think you're going to see a big positive change. I don't think we'll obviously see the craziness we had with 3% interest rates, but at least it will cause a healthier market for both buyer and seller to take action. I think the biggest challenge of the fourth quarter was no one really wanted to take action unless they had to.
Right.
Today, people are comfortable. Lots of people have bought homes at 5%. Generations have bought homes at 5%. Even people in their late 30s and 40s, they understand what buying a home is at 5%. I think that's the magical number that we're all kind of striving for.
Well, the funny thing is, like buyers that I'm talking to right now are all saying, marry the house, date the rate. It's like that little buzzword that we started, talking about last quarter.
Yeah.
Everybody's talking. I mean, even people I talk to now are like talking about it. And the thing that, I don't like about the media, and I've talked about this in previous posts, is like we have the Jerome Powell raised interest rates in February by a quarter point. I think that's his last interest rate raise, and I quote me on this, for the year. I think we'll probably see interest rates start to come down third quarter, fourth quarter is my prediction, but we'll see what happens there. But what I found really funny was the jobs report that came out, that we supposedly killed it on the jobs report. What people didn't realize about the jobs report is, and that you'll find out next month because they'll redo the data next month, but they used seasonal numbers. So all the people that Nordstrom's hired, all the people that all these stores retailers hired, or Christmas tree people, they threw that all into the number. They threw it into the number because during February as well, we had the State of the Union.
Sure.
So they didn't want to go into the State of the Union with all this negativity. But if you take all that seasonal stuff out, we actually only created 83,000 jobs.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. I mean, we've seen the job cuts at least along the West Coast, and I'm sure we'll see them across the country.
Well, Microsoft just announced today they're laying off 17,000 more employees. So I'm just wondering where
speculative
all this...
tech and a lot of these folks were overhired in the pandemic because these companies were all blowing up. And
Right.
you know, thankfully, San Diego is pretty insulated from a lot of that.
Right.
You know, the jobs that we have here are pretty insulated. We have a lot of military, government jobs, government security type jobs. We have biotech and science, which has taken a few hits, but if you look at job loss across the county, it's pretty minimal. There's actually websites you can go to that actually calculate all this and figure out how many jobs are actually lost. And San Diego is probably one of the least impacted cities along the West Coast in terms of job loss, which I think is really good because that's where people start measuring the metric of home prices falling. Is if jobs fall, then they'll sell homes, then they'll have to go rent. And I don't think we're going to see as much of it here in San Diego just because of the type of businesses that operate here.
Which you're going against Goldman Sachs.
That's okay. I'll go on record and say that they're wrong and probably the local people are right because they're not really using. I mean, they don't really use data, and I think the news kind of fear-mongered a lot of people with that. And I think if you look at the actual data with inventory numbers, we were the only one of the 4 cities they even compared to that actually had less inventory post-COVID compared to pre-COVID and compared to those other 3 cities. So I don't think we'll be seeing much of that. I don't think we saw, Austin, a lot of job cuts there. San Jose, a lot of job cuts there. Nashville, a lot of remote people there. There isn't a lot of ton of industry
move there for COVID, right?
Yeah. Well, there isn't a ton of industry there really, like in terms of high-paying jobs. You have a couple big, international and national companies, but for the most part, a lot of people either have had established wealth that moved there or had a job that allowed them to kind of do whatever they wanted. So I think San Diego is got some good in front of us, and I think a lot of it goes down to what happens to inventory, what happens to interest rates.
Well, that's the question I want to ask you, is because you normally we do a weekly call, you and I, and you'll tell me what the inventory numbers are.
Yep.
And what are we seeing inventory number? Are we seeing inventories building, or are we seeing it?
Not really. This is the 3rd week in a row where we've had more homes go into escrow than actually come on the market. We actually had over 120 home deficit of homes that came to the market, which means we're gobbling up more inventory than even what's coming live, so which will actually cause us to curtail the existing inventory. So I think you'll start to see that. But I also think that will give energy to people who want to sell their homes. A lot of people who wanted to sell their home at the end of the 4th quarter looked around at their neighbors and saw them all sitting on the market and not sold and said, I don't know if I want to do that.
Right.
So they shelved the whole idea. So I think you have some pent-up people who want to move and pent-up people who want to buy, and I think that's kind of the storm we're waiting for. So I think it'll create a very controlled environment.
Will it be controlled, or will it be the craziness that we saw last year?
I don't think we'll see craziness. I think that's over. I think everyone's just on a much more cautious footprint, especially when rates are not free practically. So
Right.
I think everyone's on a much more cautious footprint, which will cause them to take smarter steps. And it may be the slowdown everyone needed from a market-wise, because it was a little too crazy.
Well, when you saw homes that went for $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 over ask, that just...
Not to say that homes won't sell over their list price today. I think that's very likely a possibility if you're pricing them based on the last 90 days of figures, which is how real estate agents are going to price a home. But I think what you'll find is the actual new inventory coming on. We saw homes that were sitting for a few months that all of a sudden got 2 offers on them.
Right.
So they're not going crazy, but they're getting gobbled up, and I think that's important and good for the market because it will cause more sellers to get on board with that.
Come to the market.
Which is, I think, as a whole, what buyers need and what sellers need.
So when we saw the craziness with the massive appreciation on homes, and if you take the country as a whole, during a recession, it's always between the real estate increases, except for the mortgage crash, right? The market increases between 5 to 8%. Do you think that's a normalized market here in San Diego, or do you think that someone who's buying now, that property is going to be worth 6 months from now, 8 months from now, is going to be worth 15% more?
Hard to say. When I sit down with every seller who's about to do something today, or a buyer wanting to buy a house, they're all asking, should I wait a little, should I not? It's super hard to say because, like I started, the market's very emotional. So it really depends a lot what happens with interest rates. I think there's a lot of interesting things going on globally too that could make a difference into what's happening over the next year or two. So I think you kind of watch that, and the market has become very quickly emotional to that happening.
Right.
News spreads faster than ever now, so any sort of uptick or slowdown is getting shared a lot faster, both on a big media outlet to a local media outlet. So I think we'll have a much more steady, realistic approach. I think 5 to 8% seems like a reasonable number. It's always hard to make these percentages because we're going to probably see some emotional rubber banding happening.
Back and forth.
So we'll see some sprints and some slowdowns as rates kind of figure out their stable point. So I don't think we'll see any craziness this year. I think it'll be probably a mellow year, real estate respectively. The big question is, will transaction count, I think, get high enough to cause the rest of the economy to work? Because if we don't have a lot of houses sell, anywhere between 35 and 50 people are affiliated with a real estate transaction, right, from a painter to a handyman to a landscaper to whatever. So I think that will definitely, you'll see the economy itself not have as much transactions happen. We'll see the market be a little less transactional, which will probably cause a lot of other things to normalize.
Which is fine.
An HVAC guy who was making 7 figures in 2021 because everybody decided to replace them,
right,
is not doing that this year. It's calmed down. So I think a lot of the trades and people that are affiliated with real estate will start to pick back up and normalize, but I don't think it'll get crazy.
Well, that's good. That's good enough. Appreciate your time.
You got it.
One last question.
You got it.
Gas stoves.
Gas stoves, I really like them, and I really hope they don't go away. So I don't know if you ever tried to cook on an electric cooktop. It's not very fun.
It's really difficult, isn't it?
It's very, very difficult, and you feel like you have a uneven hibachi flat top on the front. So not a big fan of it. I hope we do get gas stoves, but I don't know if anyone paid their San Diego Gas and Electric bill last month. It was quite a lot for gas. I don't think I've ever paid that.
I think we're getting a rebate or something.
I got a whopping 7% back, so I'm super excited with that.
But they're doing it over the next 2 or 3 months.
Hopefully, I sure hope so. I paid a lot last month for gas and electric.
I paid a lot.
Time for us to get some solar.
Exactly.
Awesome.
Thanks, Sean. Appreciate your time.